Here we're returning to Gloomhaven under slightly different circumstances. Like I said, I moved it downstairs where I have some heat, and it also allows me to play other things in between upstairs where the heat's not so good. However, I have to say, for a game that's meant to be packed up and taken, and put back into play, I'm not finding this terribly easy. And part of it has to do with my using these little things. A lot of them fell off in the time span, where if you mark them or something, that's more helpful. But there's not really an easy way to kind of look at, and maybe again there's sheets that help you or whatever, but kind of look at these different things and try to figure out, hey, which one did I want to go to? Because I didn't mark that in advance. I have a few options. Now, I'm going to have to go back to Gloomhaven. I've got some leveling up to do and some other stuff that I hadn't taken care of beforehand. But I think I've kind of pulled down which places I haven't visited yet that I can still visit, and but I don't know what they are. I don't know what the sort of storyline that would lead to them is. One that I do know is the place of elemental power. And given that there's a thing, this is the rift neutralized, there's a thing the rift closed. And maybe I do want to pursue that, but I'm also a little hesitant to follow up on another big demons thing right away. I feel like that was tough. I'm a little worried about my capabilities of playing after having been away from the game for a while, because this is not a chuck dice, and make vague plans, well, not even vague plans, but make strategic plans in terms of how you can cope with the enemies that you're facing. Only you have to worry about the peculiar mechanisms involved in these cards, and that I find, even when I'm playing it fairly regularly, to be hard. Not as hard, like I've said, as Mage Knight, but still something that if you're not, if you haven't been playing one after the other, it's not trivial to get back in the mindset of playing this, because it is a very different mechanism for play, which I see as a big flaw. Not the different mechanism, but the idea of this is meant to be a game that you can put aside and come back to in a couple weeks or whatever. And at least that's, it's so big, and it has this episodic nature to it that makes it seem that way. However, the reality is I'm afraid to pick it up again, I really am. And that kind of leads to a, well, what does that mean in terms of, being able to proceed through the whole campaign? Because doing the whole campaign straight seems a little painful. Playing once a week is one thing, but what if you miss a month because people are away or whatever, or you just want to do some other things for a little while? Well, I've missed a couple months, and now I feel lost. Okay, so I think I'm going to aim for the sewers. I don't remember the motivation on that. I looked over the beginning of all these, because sometimes the introduction helps. So like the drakes, something about wanting to breathe water. I don't remember needing to breathe water. This one's something about dragons. Might be interesting, but whatever. More undead. Yeah, I feel a drive to follow up on the undead, but I am sick and tired of them. So this way I won't have to travel, at least, I think. You decide to unwind at the Sleeping Lion. This is another event that pisses me off, but just as you are starting to relax, a bear of a man crashes into your table, scattering your drinks across the floor. Towering over him is a massive inox. "What did you say about my horns?" the inox shouts. I have to be quiet, my wife's next door. The man stands up and brushes shards of glass from his tunic. I said the sight of them makes me want to vomit. The inox roars and charges headlong into the man, crashing through more tables in the process. At this, the entire tavern erupts into violence. After all, when a man is deep into his drinks, the last thing you want to do is knock that drink over. So the options are join the fray. These insults will not go unanswered. I mean, no. And then the other is do your best to stop the fighting. This is a respectable establishment. No. I mean, I'd want to probably leave, you know. Okay. So I don't feel like we have anything that's particularly good at calming stuff down, so I guess we throw ourselves in and see what the hell happens. Ooh. Nothing like busting some drunken skulls to lift one's spirits. It turns out to be a great way to unwind. Unfortunately, the proprietor doesn't exactly see it that way and sullenly asks for compensation for the damage caused. So, this is 10 experience each, and lose 5 gold or lose a reputation. Well, I'm kind of happy with where our reputation's going, so I think ditching the money is worthwhile if I have it, and we get some experience. I think that pushes it so that everybody's going up a level. So I was like already over here. He was close, and that 10 is going to push him over. So at least we'll all be going up, whatever that means. I think we're in danger of boosting the level of the monsters is the problem, but that was going to happen anyway. Alright, can't remember if I talked about this before. I'm in Gloomhaven. Do I have to do a travel situation? I know I looked that up before and came to the conclusion that, wow, I think you do, and I don't think I like that because the travel scenario, the travel cards seem to indicate you're outside Gloomhaven. Let me read how this is worded, because I'm not sure I caught all the nuances. After every scenario, whether it was a success or failure, players have a choice to either return to Gloomhaven or immediately travel to a new scenario. Gloomhaven has a whole series of rules here. None of which seem to tell you what happens when you go to the new scenario. The way this is worded, and there may be errata for it, but it's not written in my rulebook. I may have looked it up. They must complete, in the case the players immediately travel, they must complete a road event before starting the new scenario. Unless they're playing the same scenario, blah, blah, blah. No. Maybe there's somewhere else where it tells you you have to do one of those. Paging my way through this rulebook is not at all easy. I don't believe so. I believe the only time these things come up is in the campaign. I think the decision I came to was, even if I go to Gloomhaven, well, so here's the thing, the way it's worded, it looks like even if you go to Gloomhaven, or if you go to Gloomhaven, you don't have to draw a road event. I think that's bullshit, and I'm pretty sure that is probably covered in the errata. The reason being, you could always just go back to Gloomhaven to avoid the road scenarios. They tend to be kind of painful. Whereas the city scenarios, not so bad. They don't afflict you with a bunch of damage before the scenario starts. Given that, and clearly if you were hurt in Gloomhaven, hey, I'll go back and hang out at the inn for a day and rest, or whatever it is that makes me okay, you know. There's no real sense of urgency in terms of I've got to run and get to the sewers right now. Maybe with the warehouse there was a little bit of that, but not really. So I don't think there are any scenarios where there's really an urgency. I think there's the possibility that these things could, if left badly positioned, could end up getting you in a bad world state. That might be more interesting to play. It's kind of like with Dungeon Degenerates. It's not necessarily a bad thing that you make the world more painful for yourself. It might be more interesting overall. But anyway, basically, by completing things correctly, I might be short-circuiting certain opportunities On the other hand, it might go the other way as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if I'm within Gloomhaven, I don't have to draw the road event. In fact, probably shouldn't, and so that's where I'm going to be there. Let me briefly look over the things I picked. I did some modifications to my decks, of course, these decks, the randomizer decks. But this guy picked this Chromatic Explosion, which, you know, is a one-time use, but remember, she's able to get her cards back, so this looks more appealing to me. Gives a couple of XP, hits a bunch of things at moderate level of damage, and creates all sorts of mana, which I just look at. Hey, all sorts of mana is probably good, unless I'm fighting demons or something. And then I don't remember what she took for her card. I think she took the pull a -1 out and replace it with a +1, just to improve your deck a little bit. For Cragheart, take this one, which allows a powerful melee attack in many directions. And then this other, which, if he's doing melee attacks and he's next to an object, he can smack you with the object or something. And it adds significantly to the attack value. I'm kind of looking at, hey, I want to improve his melee capabilities and go less with the ranged attacks. I feel like I'm moving in that direction with getting the axe and the shield. I may end up selling the bow back, in which case you can maybe buy the bow. I'm not sure. If there's going to be a lot of fire, there's that other weapon. And for ability, let's see, I think I added another +2 muddle card in there. Yeah. And then here, I took these Noxious Vials, which will allow me to refresh an ally's consumed items who's adjacent. I don't know how useful that's going to be. And then a one-use attack that does poisoning. I didn't like the other option very well at this level, and I hate the idea of like not taking the highest level cards I can, even though they're probably decent lower value cards. It increases what I have to pay attention to do that. And for his card, for his manipulation here, he added 3 of these repeating muddles. The reason for that being, those kind of cards actually help you with curses. Because, do they? No. What do they fuck with? They fuck with something. I'm trying to remember what the hell they do. Because the curses say no damage. There was some reason that those cards were cool. Oh, I know what they help with. They help when you're disadvantaged. But they kind of hurt when you're advantaged. So, I don't know. Since I have this, it's probably a bad idea to put that in there. But it's what I did. Again, being away from the game for a while, I'm not really making the best choices. And I fear that's going to be the case across the line. Well, I have to urinate. I started to set up this scenario. These are all listed as water hexes. Now, there's an interesting thing. The overlay tiles are not all obstacles. And we've had this issue before where there were like logs. I treated them as obstacles. These brambles, these things, I treated them as obstacles. They're not. Now this is problematic because I've been choosing Cragheart's abilities based on, you know, wow, there are a lot of obstacles in this game. That's pretty cool, including his most recent one. I'm kind of upset to find this out. These are difficult terrain. All they do is take 2 movement points to enter. Hazardous terrain counts like traps. There's nothing, you know, sure, there are some abilities that are similar in terms of like pushing people and stuff, but these don't count as obstacles, so I'm not going to be able to play with these in the same way that I've been doing so recently. I mean, I was thinking about it. It's very strange to treat water like something I can slap people around with, and more troubling than that, the fact that I couldn't complete the adventure if I didn't have some way to get the obstacle out of the way led me to look this up. That should be specified down here. that it should say hazardous terrain, not water. And this has been the case throughout these things. You know, they've got things like huge boulders. Well, I don't know what that is. You know, damage trap, I know what that is. But if it doesn't tell me which thing it aligns to here, I'm more likely to be confused, as I have been in the past. So, you know, not surprisingly, yep, playing things wrong. This is the first time I haven't chosen to take her Mystic Ally. I haven't figured everything out yet, but I have figured out the decks that we're going to use. Kind of regretting not having bought some Blesses, but basically I forgot to think about it, and now that I'm, you know, seeing what the dungeon's like, I don't feel like it's really fair to do it. If I fail, I'll probably pick some up and come in again. Make a deal, but I thought I had everything all set up and was ready to go. Planned my attacks and everything, and I realized I hadn't drawn my scenario goals. Not too big a deal. I was able to do them in about a minute. But yeah, we're finally ready to go. Now I've been delaying a couple of days just because, well, it's not lack of heat, man. I have as much heat as I want in here. I got one heater there, I've got another one in the back that I'm not running right now. But it's also kind of underground here, so it doesn't get cold like the loft does. Just having a really hard time wanting to actually do this, or anything for that matter, but this in particular, I'm beginning to get the feeling that there's just too many scenarios for not really feeling like it's going to add much. We'll see. I'm going to try to push through some more. They're going well to begin with. These Vipers are nasty. They, yeah, only an attack -1, but everything had a disadvantage attacking them. I managed to kill 2 of them off, but they're, you know, rushing me. And everybody's poisoned now, which is going to be problematic. It means the first healing action is just going to eat up the poison counter, which kind of sucks. I'm going to reshuffle here. Nice thing is the oozes didn't do much, and they didn't get close enough, because neither of them could actually move, that they could loot and steal that coin for whatever value that is. A lot of clever healing that I set up, so clever that it managed not to get my battle bot into combat, because it was behind other things. But I got rid of all those poisons. However, I got rid of them before anything could attack, which is great. I mean, it reduced damage, but then they reoccurred. So now both the Tinker and the Spellweaver both are poisoned and are immobilized due to the card the Vipers got. And perhaps worse, I created 2 more oozes. So now the way forward is more blocked than it would have been. The only real question I have is whether or not I want it to create the skeleton. I think I did. I think I left that out, and I'm gonna drop the skeleton here. That's gonna further clutter things, but I really do need more firepower than I have. Things look a little better, but the oozes did a massive hit on the Tinker. First of all, killed the skeleton, and unfortunately, the Tinker's little skeletal ring, if somebody else had that, he has a card that could refresh it and allow it to be used again, which is awesome. But nobody went and bought that. He actually would have had enough gold to buy another ring. However, you know, they're carrying extra one of these. And the other bonus of that card is actually, I think it's a refreshable card, so you can several times give somebody one of their small items back and charge it back up, which is really cool. But also hit him with a 5-point hit, which I was just like, I'm not taking, so I dropped a card to avoid the damage, especially since I'm poisoned. It actually would have been a 6-point hit. That's just too much. Paying the price for being higher level already. These things are third level critters. I don't know if we're gonna make it. I mean, you know, we're gonna make it through this room, I assume, but there's two more rooms, and we gotta kill everything in them. There's no cheap way out here. I managed to play one card, one turn. Today I got 2 off. I may come back, we don't know, but I just can't stick around down here and just keep playing. I've got I got a computer game I'm playing that's kind of fun, and I just not feeling the love, not just for this, but for any board games, to tell you the truth. Okay, I found out that I screwed up last turn. The Viper that was here actually had taken enough hits to be dead. I didn't think anything had that low a hit point, but those things only have 4 at the lower level. It's been a couple of days. I took Christmas off, and you know, like I said before, I'm not feeling love in this game a couple of days ago, and I'm really not. It's just sort of become this schlag. It feels, well, it would be permissible if it didn't involve the thinking of the cards. If I could just sort of dice my way through it, it would be okay. But I'm just not getting, you know, enough of what I consider payoff to qualify the amount of effort that I have to put into figuring out the puzzle of the cards. And it's kind of, honestly, it's the way I started feeling about Mage Knight. I know some people fucking love it. People love this. Same kind of thing is, yeah, you know, it was neat to explore the different adventures. These aren't coming out different enough. But basically, I could do each one once, maybe twice. And here there's tons and tons of them. But they just don't feel different enough. Every now and then it slides you something that's a little tricky, but mainly it's like try to figure out the same kind of puzzling between your cards that you figured out before how to do, and now it's gotten harder or whatever, but your cards have gotten a little better, and you just have to just continuously be doing this optimization problem, where between games, it, you know, if you take the time off between games, not only is it hard to remember the rules, but it's even harder to remember how the fuck, you know, you managed things and how you got into the swing of things. Like if I went back and played Mage Knight now, I would be horrible at it. Is that a terrible thing? I don't know. It just wouldn't come back quickly, and you get demolished so fast if you don't do things just perfectly early on. Anyway, we managed to clear the room for what that's worth, but I don't feel in very good shape. Gonna have to do some kind of recoveries. For example, she's going to be doing a long recovery this turn. But yeah, at the big tactical decision, do you plow through the door or do you wait and give people time to rest a little bit more? I kind of feel like I have to burn through the cards that I have and probably open the door, but at least I've got him in the front with his retaliation power, and maybe he'll be able to do some damage, and then the other characters will come through with more power. I don't know. But I always feel like I'm wasting too much because cards are so important by not opening that door, even though that's going to trigger an extra card for each monster. I don't know. I really don't know. I probably should just long rest. Get back a bunch of my equipment. I think I will. Take a turn off. After delaying a turn, we blow through the door. Took out, I think, just one Viper here. That's all we actually killed. Yeah. And did a little bit of damage. This one's almost dead, actually, right up here. But I'm not sure it was a great trade overall. I mean, we did kind of luck out all these vermlings back here. They weren't able to move, they aren't in range, so they were taken out of the equation. One of the two oozes was out of the equation. Too far away, they couldn't move, too slow. So only the vipers really came at us. And we suffered a couple of attacks, though, which cleared out the frozen shield, whatever that is. And also a poison marker, which seemed to just be par for the course as long as the vipers are still here. I think we can make it through this room. But there's always the, geez, you know, these things are close fought battles, at least, you know, for me at this level. Now, any normal solo player would probably be, well, solo happy players usually are more in tune with trying to optimize. They'd be facing a harder challenge. I think another level up, which, you know, comes with more rewards, but these don't get easier as you go, I don't believe. You have, I had to swap batteries there. Well, you have some better cards, higher level cards are nicer, and some of your lower level cards that you want to use, you've been able to boost. You might have more items. You have more hit points. The monsters also have more hit points. They're not going to go up there, but these values increase their attack, their hit points, etc. And while these cards don't change, they do add abilities as you go higher and higher levels. So they just become tougher monsters just as you become tougher. And I assume, you know, there's a fair attempt to balance there so far. I've been able to eke through all the scenarios, but I feel like they've been just a wee bit tougher than I would prefer. Mainly because I don't want... It's felt like they've always been hinging just on the edge of failure. And if I was just a little bit less, you know, capable of playing than I am, which isn't, you know, I'm not like bragging and saying I'm good at this, but if I was a little bit better at playing than I am, or a little bit worse at playing than I am, I would probably be facing failure in the majority of these instances. I think I failed once, right? I don't know. And that wasn't even a complete failure, right? But I don't like the idea, I don't know. I like the idea of when the party gets wiped out, they get wiped out kind of thing. And yes, that's an option in the game, but it's too tough. And, you know, even just throwing permadeaths in, I would be running through characters too quickly, I think, to meet my desires. It's not how the game's designed. It's an option again, but you know, it's not what it's designed for, so it's not really balanced for that. You could play around with it and weaken the balance and, you know, keep the rewards up or something like that. You can make all kind of playing around like that in order to try to make it a little easier and a little less deadly. But, you know, it just hasn't seemed worth the effort to me, because I don't want it to be a rollover, and I'm kind of afraid it would be if I tweak it too much, you know, especially if I keep the rewards at the same level so that the characters continually are increasing, although the monsters would still be increasing in conjunction with them, so it's not too much. I don't know if I have another one in me tonight. A little bit of table talk done. These guys both wanted to move late. He actually screwed up. He's moving before him, which he didn't want to do, which means he's not going to be out of the way, and we're kind of in a bottleneck there, which is going to cause problems. We'll see what that does. He wanted to move early. He's like, yeah, I'll get out of the way, man. You can see, you know, if I could have coordinated, I could have done better. And then I flipped the monsters over, and then when I thought about it, you know, I thought about one of the things that I don't like about this. So I kind of mentioned this before in passing, but this is a particular case that bugs me. So this card that I had last turn, range 4, 2 target. I'm assuming it's some kind of thrown missile weapon or something that he has limited quantities of. Okay. But here's the problem. Those limited quantities don't last. If he gets a redraw, a reshuffle on this deck, he spawns another one. But that other one's not available for some reason. And that's kind of the feeling that I have with a lot of this card-based thing. Look, you either have your missile or you don't. You can pick it up or you can't. You know, other earlier systems from the 80s used to handle, hey, they'd track each piece of ammo. You'd have to worry about each thing. Dungeon Degenerates follows that same kind of pattern where you're actually following, you know, some kind of attempt to model reality and map to it directly, you know. Here, the modeling has been abstracted to, yeah, you know, maybe he'll pick one up on the way or something, you know. That's what the reshuffle means, but it doesn't mean that he has it always available either. He only has it available when he draws it. So at the optimal point, like here, he decided to throw it on the ground or something, you know, or just pocket it and he's not going to use it. And it's that kind of thinking that makes it very, very hard for me to accept the reality of this, which means then I'm no longer playing something that I can immerse in the actions. I either have to make up lots of shit to try to understand the storyline, or I'm just playing a tactical game, and I'm just worried about the game aspect of it, which is, of course, some of the problems with some of the card-based games that are other systems that are older than this. I know I had similar problems with Gunslinger and, you know, some others that that tended to try to represent things using cards in a way that didn't map perfectly. And therefore, yes, there's some abstract sort of representation and modeling going on, but because it doesn't map well, it's like fucking with time for me, which is my high frontier problem, which there's just certain things you can't screw with, you know. They stop working for me. The attempt to get away from detailed record tracking and systems of yore being replaced with more modern systems that, you know, don't really worry about that as much. They're emphasizing more on gameplay choices in terms of optimizing your cards, in terms of your hand management, all kind of crap like that. And that kind of gets to the heart of what I don't really like about more modern designs, even when they do try like this, and like some CDGs, they really do try to, you know, give you as much, both as much game space to explore, but also as much detail in a certain way as the older systems do. But those older systems were devised in a very simple sort of way. It was, this is how things actually work. Let's try to mimic that. Let's try to model that very directly and map it directly onto the game space here and in many other designs that are more modern and people like more because, I don't know, maybe they like studying cards more than they like studying, you know, the tactical implications of the actual things they're holding or whatever. It boggles my mind. It's like, you know, obviously there's a renaissance of gaming around this type of design, but I don't see the advantages to it. Yeah, you start getting too abstract and you start losing me. I can only kind of accept abstractions where I feel like, you know, extreme abstractions where I feel like, you know, you can't represent that other thing. For example, 18xx representing the stock market with only a few players. Your options are random or not, you know, random or some kind of pattern that people can manipulate, perhaps unreasonably. Here, I feel like people are manipulating their actual item usage and, you know, muscles and everything in ways that just doesn't work. And we use a lot of a lot of abilities here to try to make the cards work because of the timing issues. She jumps over a bunch of things and does some fire and then goes invisible with her cloak. Well, his bot only got to here, but he jumped in here and did some damage to these things firing off. And then Craghart jumps in the midst of everything, does damage to everybody, all his allies, everybody. A couple points of damage. Didn't have his jump set up properly. Wasn't clear to do it. And but did end up finishing off the Vermilion Scout and this with the jump, actually. It didn't get optimal use of the card I had, but it meant that I could use it just as a normal attack card, which I usually don't see happening. Usually I can figure out how to use the card the way it's meant to be used, but here it just wasn't happening. I gotta consider whether or not I want to pull cards back with him. I haven't done his turn yet. This fire's going down. Yeah, that was in play. Okay, cool. I feel a little better. A little bit like my critters are stronger, my characters are stronger, proportionally even, maybe. I was able to stomp out everything, actually. One of it was a lucky shot because the ooze killed itself. But Spellweaver was still invisible, doing a long rest. That's always a bonus to do. In terms of me, I, like you care, maybe. I ended up missing playing it all yesterday, I think. And it's funny because I was counting on, as I also often do, oh yeah, I got, a whole day off tomorrow, or yesterday. I was thinking tomorrow at the time, or whatever. I should be able to finish this up. Yeah. You know what? I just slept all day. Depression setting in, whatever. And it's the way of my life, I guess. And now I don't even know if I'm going to finish up this scenario before my holidays end, as it were. I have Saturday, which usually is a sleep pretty hard day, and then Sunday I've got to go shopping. However, we are getting close to the end. But I was hoping to get a couple of these done, in this time period. Anyway, the BattleBot takes itself some poisoning, which is going to hurt it a little bit. But largely, we're through the monsters, so maybe I can drop a trap or something, although things aren't really sealed off enough for that to make a lot of sense. If he can drop a couple of boulders and he can drop a trap, that would knock this thing out. Now, the problem, of course, is that bot is going to be lost, and it might fight its way through, so it might be stronger than the Viper. The Viper's almost dead anyway, so maybe I'm better off not wasting cards on all that kind of trickery and just, go forward as fast as I can, resting concerns and considerations in place. For example, Spellweaver's down to almost no cards, but she's got the capability to draw her deck again. Tinker, he looks pretty good. Craghart looks okay. I keep forgetting, and I should never have grabbed these recovery cards. I can't, nor this. Things that, I have to make a decision about the turn before. I just can't do that. I'm not capable of that kind of discipline. I'm not capable of it solo, where I'm walking away for a day or two between turns. But I also honestly can't do it in a posed game. Well, this isn't really opposed, but in an actual game of this where you're playing with other people, I can't plan that way. I can't say, I bet you I'll need a red mana next time. Every now and then I can make that decision. But this, oh shit, my hand looks bad. Especially solo, though, because I'm not focusing on one character at a time. So I'm like, oh, let me get this out of the way. And I'm not like thinking during my downtime, maybe I should have done this. And when I do play with other players, a lot of times I'm like, oh geez, I should have done this. Does anybody mind if I do this? You know, right after my turn, I say, yeah, I'm done with my turn. Somebody else starts to go, and then I start to think, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. And of course, you know, that's kind of cheating too. So, alternative is for me to be effective at that kind of thing is to take forever on my turns in absolute silence, which of course is no fun to play either. So, you know, it's like, well, why are we playing? You know, are we playing to have a good time or to win this? If we're just playing to have a good time, does it still matter whether or not I do this? You know, I would say, you know, it kind of does. Because if I was able to think properly in a circumstance, I would probably make that decision properly. But I'm also feeling kind of hurried in terms of getting other people moving along. Short turn here. He wanted to go first, so that his bot might kill that thing. It didn't work out that way. The bot's now looking pretty degraded, but also because he did do some healing, recovered a potion for the Spellweaver and did some healing for them, which got rid of, you know, it was a heal 1, so it's like the best thing to use on poison effects. So the bot clears away the Viper. Tinker does some good stuff. Throws a shield up on all his allies, which is kind of important. I forgot about it, but it ends up keeping the Spellweaver in better shape, because what she did was just charge through the door without support. He's resting, long rest, and killed off a couple of Vermlings, but then 2 of them came running up. Plink plink, didn't do much, but the oozes did. She had to actually drop a card. That would have been 4 hits against her because of the poison she got from the first one. These guys luckily didn't come forward. Those things are nasty because of the ranged weapons. Most of the stuff doesn't have a long range weapon, but boy do they. And 4 wouldn't reach normally, so it seemed vaguely safe because I mean, if I had known the layout of the room, which I didn't, I knew the layout, but I didn't know exactly where the monsters were or whatever. And I only vaguely pay attention to the rooms that I haven't been in. They wouldn't have actually been able to hit, so it would have worked out, you know, even if I studied the scenario beforehand. I would have probably done this, but they got the draw that gave them not only a capability to move, which they don't always have. I mean, these guys couldn't, but these guys had 1 movement, but it gave them enough range to reach her, and also additional attack bonuses, which was kind of problematic. Anyway, I feel pretty good, but these things are tough. The little storyline for this is why I see this as so little. You'd think this was going to be something important, where maybe you make a choice or something. No, it never is. Navigating through the passageways, you find yourself in a large open room with a cistern in the center. Around the cistern stand a group of vermlings who look up and snarl in your direction. This must be the cause of the poisoned water. You know, this is sort of the degree of story that there is for the most part through this thing. It isn't sufficient for me. All it is a framework to hang all these scenarios on. And honestly, that just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. You know, it's like, with a GM and everything, something this sparse can work because you can play and add NPCs, discussions and everything to it. But if this is supposed to be sort of trying to replicate that role-playing experience, and I feel like that's really what it's aiming for, more than just, hey, this isn't just your standard dungeon crawl, right? Well, it's got 2 things going for it, right? It's not just your standard dungeon crawl because it has some story, but the story is pretty damn weak. And it's not your standard dungeon crawl because it has these cards, which I see how they're attractive to people. I find them both painful to play with and also damaging to the believability of what's going on. So overall, you know, I'd be just fine with a bunch of Hero Quest scenarios or whatever the hell it is. I think it's called Hero Quest, whatever the fuck the old GW dungeon crawl was. I'd be fine with that, you know. the surprise level, there isn't any, because you do set up the whole scenario beforehand, more or less. So you kind of see it. So it gets you in the same position as that does. Alright, let's swap batteries. Maybe we'll be able to finish this up tonight. Things looked a lot better before the ooze growth card came up, but now there's a ton of those oozes. There's still a vermling left. She threw her shield up, and I don't know what the hell else. Killed a vermling. And he charged into the room using his boots to get himself in a position where he could drop some damage on some of the oozes. Not enough to kill them off. If I had done it correctly, I think I could have killed at least one of these, and thus maybe prevented as many oozes. But I'm not so sure, because terrain limitations, the fact that there's stuff around, including water, prevented the oozes from spreading. So they only spread into empty hexes. These are not empty, so by my book at least. So that works out there. Well, bot's coming up. It's gonna take forever. It's not gonna get there in time. But yeah, that's definitely looks a lot worse than it did just a moment ago. And that's the problem. The oozes are big and hard to kill, and they grow. Now that growth card goes back in the deck, it could just keep coming out. Of course, there's a limit to the total number of oozes, but our goal here is to kill everything. And we may have trouble doing that if those suckers keep growing. No, that's, I guess, the tough part of the scenario. It's turned out not that bad, because poison isn't that big a deal. Poison would bother me more. Like, to me, poison is more like wounds, although wounds are bleeding, so, like, they cause continuous loss, I guess. But to me, poison also is like a continuous loss thing, instead of, hey, you're easier to hit because you've been poisoned. Huh? I don't get that. But I guess they wanted different effects, you know, whatever. Anyway, I got my reshuffle, and that's about it. Things are looking very, very bad at this point. She's doing a long rest. I haven't gotten to that yet. But the oozes attacked him. Cragheart charged in. Now, their range is so great that I don't feel like I could get away from it, so I want to get in close where my melee bonuses come into play. I've sort of set myself up for more of a melee character this time than I've been doing in the past. Little did I know I need a lot of ranged combat. Ranges tends to be good. Most monsters don't have a lot of ranged combat. The fact that there's a horde of these things plinking at long range, man, that's hosing me. Still have this little shit kicking around too. I haven't done him yet either. But yeah, he's discarded 2 cards on this round to get rid of like 5 and 6 point hits. He's down to like 3 hit points. He's just not there, and I don't think without all the characters kind of at close to full strength that I can take this out. So I think I'm doomed and down here. It's been over a week since my last card play. Set up my actions here for a number of reasons, one of which is this game coming down here or whatever, but just playing this and my lack of desire to, you know, psych myself up to play a single card set, and then go, and the fact that I was dripping 1 per day or whatever, that has made it so that, like, I just got more and more discouraged from the idea of playing. And this happens sometimes to me with games, not just this kind, but, you know, some of the other big ones. Sometimes I'm away for a week or so. Kind of sucks in the middle of a little scenario like this, but it happens. And, you know, I ended up taking up a computer game or something and playing a lot of that. So that's part of what's going on, why you're not seeing anything from me. And it may be several years if I play through this at the same rate. Now, I mean, I'm only going to play a couple more scenarios if I can't get into the swing of this. First of all, I got the jump on the actions. The Tinker managed to kill that Vermling out of the way. And the Spellweaver fired off a lot of resources here. Her bow, her +1 attack card, which he could actually recover, but he used that card up. Yeah, he could come again, but and a big area of effect 1-use card. And only managed to kill 1 of these oozes, muddled most of the rest, though, which is a pretty big deal, maybe, except they're not attacking anyone. They're going to be healing this turn, actually. Oozes have a loot that eats up some of the treasure, some of the big coins, but I think it also eats up the treasure chest. It's basically the acid eating everything away. The end position that we're in, because they were healing, the damage that I did with the Spellweaver that was quite significant ends up mostly going away. But on the other hand, you know, none of my characters got hurt either. But we're on a time limit in terms of cards. You know, if we could keep refreshing our deck or whatever, which is always the issue in this game. If you could keep refreshing your deck, you could probably win anytime you want it. You know, you could use delaying tactics and stuff like that to get through. All of which kind of makes sense to me. But the particular conceit of this game is such that that isn't the case. Just like, you know, if you get killed, you magically survive. You know, of course, there's an optional for that, but there's no optional to handle the core system of the cards, which just does not quite work for me. On to another round. Favorite cards out there, I think, is her Cold Fire. If I can get the mana up, and I had it all in place, it's a 3 attack on 3 things at range with stuns on all of them. The Tinker managed to kill one of them off, and do some additional damage, and then she managed to kill another one off and stun the third one. So now we're down to just Craghart having to deal with these two this round, but he's a little slow, so those two are going to get the first action. They have some interesting factors here. Their attack with a range at -1. Now their normal range is 3. Ranged weapons are dangerous, which means I can only shoot at 2. So this guy may actually be in a problem where, nope, there's no move, so he's not going anywhere. So he actually isn't going to get to fire, so only one of them gets to shoot. We're going to make it again. It always feels so much worse just before it becomes clear that, yeah, I can get through it, and I know I had all that angst. And there's just, you know, this major positive feeling to, hey, I'm going to win, especially given how hard it feels they're coming. Now, maybe, you know, my negative view, my pessimism makes me so much happier when it, you know, actually turns out okay. But anyway, Craghart, well, they did a pretty hefty attack and did a significant amount of points, which the Tinker can't respond to because he only has 2 cards left. I could have played this and gotten additional cards back, but I'm like, you know, I don't know which cards I want, but I like the 2 that I'm holding, so I can recuperate my hand. I did the same kind of thinking with Craghart here, where I'm like, oh, I'm holding on to this, and I have only 1 card left after this turn, so I had better play this. Unfortunately, I played a permanent loss card, like one that's out. He's almost wiped out anyway. So I'm going to have to play this and only get 1 card back as the only way that I get, you know, an action next turn. Of course, you know, the battle is going to be over next turn, it looks like, because there's significant hits against these things. Yeah, you can never tell. These guys can do some nasty shit. Those oozes are tough. Tinker turned himself invisible after killing one of them off, grabbing the coin that was there. And the reason to turn invisible was because that would force this to attack the Craghart. The Craghart had this card up, which means this guy actually killed himself on the Craghart. And the only question is whether the Craghart got a turn. He got himself down to 1 hit point. He has no cards to discard, so because these are in play. But he does get to take an action, which means he can move and grab a coin, basically. That's about it. There's nothing else exciting to do. I have no way of getting any XP because this wouldn't be to effect. And I was at 11. I needed 2 more to get my Workhorse card to go. Luckily for me, though, the Spellweaver is going to get her card off. So this was actually pretty successful. The only bad thing, other than my mental state, is that this treasure chest got eaten. And that looks pretty damn likely with those oozes there. I think it would be pretty hard to get it. I'm wondering if it's something really special. But and I ain't coming back for another shot at it. Two people who succeeded in their goals each got a perk off them, actually. They filled out their little space, took a little healing card, and she got rid of another -1 for a +1. Again, I'm not absolutely sure where I am in terms of that. Now, there's some bookkeeping here. The conclusion. The vermlings lie dead, their dark blood mixing in the pools of water. You find no poison on their corpses. It's possible they weren't the cause, but were just living here. At the back of the room, there's large cracks present in the wall displaying a passage deeper into the depths. 23, that's the deep ruins, and I'll have to put that scenario out, of course. And if you had some way to breathe underwater, now remember, there is something that lets me breathe underwater. I wouldn't remember that if I hadn't looked at that scenario recently, but it is clued in from some of the goals, probably from one of the other scenarios, like when you talk to whatever her name is, I don't know, the sage or whatever that you go see. There's probably something in that scenario, but how the fuck do you remember this, you know? There's no notations or anything to keep that alive. Then 14 and 43, and you may even be able to enter the cistern and find the source that way, 26. Now, again, these may not work, and 43 is Drake's Nest. I think that's the one that teaches you how to go underwater. I'm not sure. So I'm going to have to do all kind of cross-referencing and looking up these scenarios within the scenario book, which is something that I do not believe you should have to do, you know, to try to figure out what, you know, what is actually available and what's not. That's one of the things that really bums me out about this. I'm not sure I have the fortitude to go on in terms of, not in terms of playing another one, I'll probably play another damn one, but in terms of cleaning up and setting up another one this turn, or today. So, you know, we'll probably do about one of these a week until I fucking get completely sick of it. And that's all we got. I think this game was a mistake for me in a lot of ways. There's just so much I don't really like about it, you know. I would be getting a kick if it was more of an old style game with all this campaign shit going on, and it would be worth me puzzling out that campaign shit. And the card play makes it too hard, too painful, too modern, you know. And then on top of that, you know, fuck it, man. There was more story in Dungeon Degenerates than there is in this. They go through this whole, you know, the idea of a legacy game where you destroy the fucking game to get the story once. That has more story. And this, the whole book and all this that goes into it, again, I think that there's much, much easier ways to do this. And I'm pretty thoroughly unimpressed with that. Basically what you get is a lot of fucking cardboard. You pay a lot of money for a lot of cardboard. And the cards and everything, and a lot of different characters. Of course, with the legacy style, it means you don't get to see most of the characters unless you play your way deep through the campaigns. So, you know, I mean, that's meant to kind of egg you on, and I guess you can break boxes open and start playing shit with other things if you really want. But honestly, I don't feel there's much here. Much to really recommend this, and I know that it's, you know, got everybody spooging all over it, but I'm beginning to feel that it's kind of an interesting combat system and actions design that appeals to a different kind of player than I am, and the rest of it is all just not that well done.